to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Fresh off her win over Danielle Perkins, Claressa Shields says, "It will be hard to top Sunday's homecoming win." Undisputed women's heavyweight champion Claressa Shields returned to her hometown for glory and a piece of history. Shields won a 10-round unanimous decision over Danielle Perkins on Sunday to win her third undisputed championship after having previously unified all four belts at middleweight and junior middle. Shields has also won titles at super middle and light heavy, the most barren divisions in women's boxing, making it that much easier to win titles there, let alone go undisputed. And I've talked about this to no end, that when you don't actually have to run a gauntlet of champions to pick up all those alphabet titles, when they're basically gift-wrapped and sent to you, it doesn't have the same effect on the boxing community at large that you want it to. It doesn't elicit the desired reaction. The fight took place at the Dort Financial Center in Flint, Michigan. This was only the second time the 29-year-old Shields had fought at home. The first time was during COVID-19. There are so many people that like to call me a hater when I point out that there were a lot of empty seats at the Dort Financial Center for this momentous occasion. Not so momentous when there ain't that many people there. For what was her third undisputed run? I'm not gonna be here in Flint every time, but I thought this was the perfect time to come back with The Fire Inside, a biopic film about Shields, released late last year, coming out, and also to showcase my upbringing in the city of Flint, Shields said. "I knew I could sell this place out. I knew that my fans would show up for me, and I wanted to make history." Sell a place out? You could literally see all the empty seats during a broadcast. History in this case was unifying 3 vacant titles with her WBC title. To do so, the 2-time Olympic gold medalist defeated a much taller and naturally heavier opponent in Perkins, a 42-year-old from Brooklyn, New York, who came in with a record of 5-0 with 2 KOs. The weight. This was not actually a heavyweight contest. Neither woman weighed in at over 200 pounds. No, this was actually a light heavyweight contest based on what they weighed in. They're just calling it heavyweight to make it seem bigger than what it actually is, and this is often the case with Claressa. They hate me for pointing it out. "That girl is strong as hell," said Shields, now 16-0 with 3 KOs. "She was definitely a problem. My experience and my skills got me over. Listen, I've been in plenty of street fights with bigger people, and I had to use some of my skills in there today." Shields described Perkins as getting greedy in the final seconds of the fight when Perkins overextended with a straight left and Shields caught her with a huge right-hand counter. The shot dropped Perkins to her knees for the sole knockdown of the evening, punctuating the clear win for Shields. No arguments with the decision. Claressa definitely won, but she had to work for it, working around the statuesque frame, size, and length of Danielle Perkins, who had mustard on that hot dog. Those were big punches she was letting go of. "Honestly, it is a hard thing to top," Shields said, "but if anybody can do it, it's me." Now addressing the reality of the situation. This was Claressa Shields' third undisputed run, and yet she didn't draw the same size crowd for this fight that, say, Amanda Serrano drew in New York against Erica Cruz, or the size crowd that Katie Taylor drew both times she fought Chantel Cameron. Why? Why is that? It's because there's no lineage here. There's no backstory. There's no history to those belts. They literally manufactured them for this fight. And so long as you keep doing that, go undisputed 4 times. 5 times. The audience is hip to what's going on. The sanctioning bodies are a party to it. When they have the audacity to call you a heavyweight champion, undisputed heavyweight champion. This was basically a light heavyweight contest. This chicanery is becoming more and more brazen. A few reactions from some content creators who I don't even normally agree with, but I had to agree with them on this. Mr. Moonshine of Punch Drunk Boxing said, "Claressa Shields wants to be compared to the men, so let's critique her like one. If any elite male fighter fights a 5-0 42-year-old novice, what would be the assessment of that performance?" Exactly. Garbage. Went the distance with a novice, just like Fury got smoked with Francis Ngannou. What the hell do you expect? Shields' performance was trash. My evaluation of the fight was not as harsh as Mr. Moonshine's, though I do agree that Claressa's insistent on comparing herself to the men. But the men wouldn't get away with fighting a 5-0 novice that's never gone the distance and failing to knock them out without getting criticized for it. So when she gets criticized for it, it's only right. Since you claim to be the greatest woman of all times, there's a number of people that don't think so.
Two-Tone, the superstar, doesn't. He said if Gervonta Davis went life and death with a 42-year-old 5-0 prospect, the sport would cancel him. Looked like an above-average fight from Love and Hip Hop Atlanta.
Ouch.
To which Mr. Moonshine responded, facts.
But for whatever reason, people want to play the fool. She always wants to be compared to the men, so we should all assess her like one. Trash fight, trash performance, novice opponent. The criticisms are harsh, but it is only in response to Claressa Shields' own behavior and her own claims that she's the greatest woman of all times for going the distance with a novice. I reiterate, Amanda Serrano fought a novice opponent with more fights than Danielle Perkins. She fought a 12-1 Stevie Morgan, who was naturally bigger, and that didn't stop Amanda from knocking her out in just 2 rounds. That's all it took, because that's all it's supposed to take if you are as good as you say you are.
It's not to say Claressa isn't good, because I think she is. She's just not the greatest woman of all times for going a distance with a novice and picking up some belts that nobody was holding.
Which is often the case, while some try to forcefully feed us this idea that she's better than everybody else.
The boxing community at large disagrees, and you can make it out what you will.
Then super middleweight news, IBF champion Richardson Hitchins stated, send the contract with the right numbers, and there, seemingly an indirect message to Teofimo Lopez and the event coordinators attempting to make a fight between them. I guess that Richardson Hitchins is not happy right now with the money.
Here we go.
To that, Teofimo Lopez, who is still WBO champion, was quick to respond via his social media. This is what he said.
Man, what kind of bitch shit is that? I'm gonna tell you like this, bro. Like, you either gonna fight me because you say you gonna beat me, or you don't fight me at all, you punk bitch. Like, how you gonna go and talk about all this madness about me, and how you gonna box me and beat the bricks off of me? Bro, man, I fought Lomachenko for $1.3 million. Whoop that ass. Yeah, same goes and applies for Josh Taylor. Whoop that ass. Same applies for Richard Coleman, IBF world champion for $800K. Whoop that ass. What are you talking about, yo? Talking about sending a contract with the right numbers. Shut that shit up, man. You just a pussy.
Now, what the exact dollar amount is that they offered Richardson Hitchins, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know.
But he doesn't understand that he better hurry up and make this fight and make it happen fast, because shortly, former champion Subriel Matias is going to be taking on that Valenzuela guy. If he beats him, he becomes your problem.
You're mandatory, and your reign as champion could come to an abrupt end if you fight him or if you don't.
Because if you don't, you know what the IBF's gonna do? They're gonna strip you. They stripped Tyson Fury. They stripped Canelo Alvarez 2 times. And you think they won't strip you?
He's got to hurry up and do this, have this fight, and try his best to win it so that he can parlay that into something bigger. Say a Devin Haney fight at 147, maybe a Ryan Garcia fight.
Hurry up.
Doesn't understand. There isn't a bigger fight at 140 for him right now. A fight with any of the other champions, any of the other belt holders not named Teofimo, it's not going to get you paid the way that fighting him will get you paid. And it may not be everything you want it to be, but it's still more than you'd get with them.
There's no alternative. The value of that fight isn't just the fight purse, it's winning it.
It's not enough to just have a belt you might soon vacate. No, it's not just enough to have a belt and have won a belt from Liam Botto. It was a good win, a solid win, and a credible win. But Richardson Hitchins is not yet a marquee fighter. He can become one if he beats Teofimo.
He's got the right style for the job. Good height, good length, movement, jab.
The value of the Lopez fight ain't just what you're going to get paid for the fight. It's what happens after that. Chalk it up to being an investment in the future. You need a signature win, bigger than just beating Liam Botto for his belt.
Not much chance that either Teofimo or Richardson Hitchins go on an undisputed run at 140.
There isn't. They are both welterweight bound. Though before you end up there, you need to settle affairs with each other. And this is about the biggest fight that Richardson Hitchins could hope to have. But if he doesn't have it and he ends up moving up the welter anyway, you won't be a champion at welter, and there will be no incentive for the names up there to fight you.
You're gonna have to start all over again.
Do you understand? Matthias is very close to becoming your mandatory. You've never fancied a fight with that guy. You do this thing with Teofimo before it comes to a head, you get yourself a signature win, then you move up. So when you move up,
You've got a signature win.
I remember a couple of years ago, Floyd Mayweather himself said that the fighters these days are getting paid too much.
More than he was getting paid when he was young and up and coming.
Now, who specifically he was talking about? Your guess is as good as mine, but I'd guess he was talking about the guys at the PBC.
All right, what's your point? What is this about?
Where this era differs from the previous one is not only do the fighters have a lot more autonomy, they actually get paid more. They get paid substantially more than they used to. A lot of the time, overpaid, in excess of their market value for no reason other than they've got an alphabet title. And I'm telling you, that didn't used to be the case. Even guys with belts.
There was a cap on the spending.
But these days, every fighter seems to expect to be overpaid. And yes, there is such a thing as overpaying. When you gotta pay a guy well in excess of what his fight generates to get him to do his job, that's overpaying.
Is Richardson Hitchins really a seven-figure fighter right now that if he's headlining a show all on his own, it's gonna generate that much?
It's not. So if they're offering you seven figures, on the low end, just take it, do your job, capitalize off the opportunity to beat Teofimo, a more well-known fighter than you are, as a segue to the bigger purses, to the bigger paydays. It's an investment in the future, if you believe in your boxing. If you don't, then you give everybody a hard time, you sandbag it.
You do the shit you're doing right now. That's what you do.
Just in keeping with the theme of fighters that expect to be paid well in excess of what they're worth.
What they're worth fiscally, because we ain't talking about intrinsic value.
Teofimo Lopez posted a screenshot that he probably shouldn't have posted. He didn't think this through, but he said, "I will get sliced for this. But this was to drop my first pay-per-view and showcase that I cannot sell in bigger venues. It was against the Puerto Rican, which should have been hosted in New York, not Vegas."
Didn't you say that you're the only star Top Rank has left? Don't you believe in your star power?
Teofimo continued, "The boxing business knows what happens if and when I miss the incentives." Four-division, two-time undisputed champion Terrence Crawford reacted to Teofimo's post by saying, 2.6 is crazy work to be getting when you're this big star you say you are. It all makes sense now why you were being goofy. Now,
2.6 what? 2.6 million?
indeed. Let's look at the screenshot. Let's look over this thing. WBO Junior Welterweight title defense versus Subriel Matias on pay-per-view March 15th at the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. Guaranteed payment to Teofimo, $2.6 million. A bonus payment of $250,000 upon the pay-per-view reaching 80,000 buys in the United States.
Not even 100.
50% of all pay-per-view revenue received by the promotion after the first 100,000 pay-per-view buys in the United States. So the threshold was basically 100,000 for Teofimo to start making more money than his guarantee.
That's not even counting the bonus. Now what we're talking about is the upside. The proverbial upside of the pay-per-view that you're always hearing about. Once it passes the break-even point, it would seem that the break-even point was just 100,000 pay-per-views, which is not a lot.
50% of all gate revenue received by the promotion above 1.5 million. That's essentially saying that Teofimo would have got half of whatever came in after the gate does 1.5 million.
An opportunity to make more than what Top Rank is guaranteeing you.
Veteran boxing scribe Mike Kopinger reacted to Teofimo's post by saying, in NFL contracts, this would be deemed not likely to be earned incentives. And Teofimo was wise enough to realize that.
That's not wisdom, Mike.
How could Mike Kopinger not see it? How could he not understand that Teofimo would have been better off saying nothing at all than posting this and exposing this, because all he's exposing is even he knows he's not a star. These are not high benchmarks. 100,000 pay-per-view buys, a $1.5 million gate. When you run around saying that you're the only star, quote-unquote star, that Top Rank has left, you should be able to hit these numbers.
Especially when you're the one who expects to be paid more money.
All you're bringing to light here is you didn't think this pay-per-view would do in excess of 80,000 or in excess of 100,000 because if you felt it would, then you would have went ahead with it. You stood to make extra. All this exposes is that you didn't think you could generate 1.5 million or more at the gate. Otherwise, you would have went through with it.
Come on, you're losing me. Make it simple.
All this exposes is that even Teofimo knows he's not that big a draw, which is why he didn't accept this fight. He did stand to make more money. If he could justify what he wants
Based on how the pay-per-view performs, he stood to benefit from it. But he was afraid of how it would perform. He didn't think the pay-per-view would hit those benchmarks.
once you sift through all the bullshit, all this communicates is that even Teofimo knew this ain't gonna draw that much.
But I thought he was a star. The only one Top Rank has left.
He knows better, and that's all he got across with all of this that he never even had to expose, which is worse. You're supposed to be on the eve of entering into a 3-fight deal with Turkey LL Sheik, and the deal kicks off with a Richardson Hitchins fight. So why are you going over this?
This is in the past. You're not fighting Subriel Matias, so why put this out there? You only made yourself look bad.
Turkey LL Sheik is willing to pay you something more to your liking, at least more than what Top Rank was offering you. He's gonna match you tough.
That's the caveat. But you have to justify it somehow. If you can't justify what you want with your own marquee value, the next best thing is to justify it with who you're fighting. The matchmaking.
Another shining example of how today's fighter wants too much money.
But what's too much?
Don't you understand? The promoter is staking their money on a show in the hopes that they will at least be able to get that money back. If they don't, then it's a loss. It's a loss for them. It's not the fighters putting up their money, it's the promoters.
What the fighters are doing, what Teofimo is doing, is asking for more.
Which makes the show riskier to put on for the promoter. You expect to be paid in excess of what they're offering you, but you can't justify it. So what do? You walk away. Try to make it seem like it's their fault, like they're the bad guys.
No, you're just greedy, and you're overvaluing yourself the way all these fighters often do.
Because what do I always say? If you let the fighters have it their way, it's always supposed to work out to where they get more money, whether it makes sense or not. And that's not a sustainable business. That's not how a sustainable business runs. Top Rank hasn't been around for 53 years because they bulk to every egotistical fighter that thinks they're supposed to get the moon and the stars for a fight.
It's the opposite.
You grew too big for the fishbowl? That's all right. Get out there in the open sea and see what happens.
You're a star.
You're Elton John and Julio Iglesias wrapped in a burrito. That's what you are.
You're Streisand.